There comes a moment in every life when the soul begins to whisper louder than the noise of the world. A moment when you can no longer pretend that the heaviness you carry is anything other than your own resistance to peace. This moment is sacred. It is not an end, but a beginning. It is the quiet threshold between who you've been and who you truly are. And if you are listening now, not just with your ears, but with your spirit, you already know. You are not here by accident. The message you are about to receive is not new. It is not foreign to you. It is the echo of something ancient, something eternal that lives within you, something that has been calling to you softly, patiently, through the silence, through the sleepless nights, through the pain that you thought you had to carry forever. But here is the truth, simple and liberating. You are not your suffering. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not your wounds. You are the awareness behind it, all the quiet observer, the divine presence who has simply forgotten its own infinite freedom. The suffering was never your identity. It was only a costume worn in the theater of experience. You mistook the role for the soul. And like an actor who forgets the script is temporary, you started to believe the pain was permanent. But now, it is time to remember suffering is not your punishment. It is your teacher. But like all good teachers, once the lesson is learned, it no longer needs to stay. So why do we hold on to it? Why do we cradle our pain like a sacred relic, passing it down from thought to thought, moment to moment, as if it defines who we are? Because we've become addicted to it. Not consciously, of course, but subtly, spiritually, emotionally. The addiction is not to the pain itself, but to the identity it gives us, the story it tells, the attention it draws, the certainty it offers in an uncertain world. Pain, you see, is familiar. And what is familiar often feels safer than the unknown, even if it hurts. We say we want peace. We say we want healing. But deep down, we fear what would happen if we truly let go of what has defined us for so long. Who would I be without my story of betrayal, of abandonment, of failure, of loss? You would be free. That is who. You would be whole. You would be infinite awareness unchained from form. You would be who you were before the world told you who you should be. But the ego resists this. The ego thrives on separation, on identity, on survival, through struggle. It whispers, if you let go of this pain, who will protect you? It says your suffering is justified. It means you were wronged. It means you matter. But what the ego offers is not protection, it is imprisonment. And you, my dear friend, were not born for a life sentence. You were born for liberation. Freedom does not begin outside of you. It begins in the invisible, in the subtle, sacred space between your thoughts. It begins when you say, I no longer need to suffer to feel alive. You are allowed to feel peace. You are allowed to be healed. You are allowed to live joyfully without guilt, even if others around you are still in pain. Your healing does not betray the past. It transcends it. Every time you return to a painful memory and choose to relive it, you're not honoring the wound, you're reinforcing the illusion that it still has power. But your mind is not a museum of grief. It is a canvas for creation. And suffering cannot exist in a mind that refuses to feed it. You are not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for what you continue to carry. Let that land in your soul. You are responsible for what you continue to carry. You do not need permission from the past to be free in the present. Freedom is not earned. It is remembered. It is reclaimed. It is what remains when the illusions fall away. And those illusions, the stories of I am not enough, I was broken, I was abandoned, I was hurt, I am unworthy, they are just clouds. You are the sky. The clouds come and go, but the sky is eternal, untouched, unshaken, unstained. You cannot fight suffering with suffering. You cannot overcome darkness by becoming it. You overcome it by returning to the light within you. And that light, your true essence, does not know suffering. It watches it, it witnesses it, it learns from it, and then it lets it go. You are that light. You are that witness. You are that sky. So why do we suffer? Because we resist what is. Because we want things to be different than they are. Because we believe life should have unfolded in another way. But the should is the cause of the pain, not the event itself. The should says this should not have happened. The should says they should not have left. The should says I should not have failed. But what is simply is, and no amount of mental protest will ever rewrite the past. It can only prolong the illusion that your freedom is on hold. It is not on hold. It is here. Now, in this breath, in this stillness, can you feel it? There is no suffering in this moment unless you bring it here. The past is not real unless you resurrect it. The pain is not alive unless you breathe your thoughts into it. There is only now. There is only the awareness that hears these words. That awareness is untouched by time, it is eternal, and in it there is no addiction, no story, no suffering, just being. You have carried the weight long enough. You have fought yourself long enough. You have rehearsed the grief, replayed the betrayal, and recited the heartbreak long enough. And now I invite you to rest. Not to give up, but to surrender. To surrender the false belief that you ever needed to suffer to be worthy. To surrender the lie that your pain is what makes you real. You are real without it. You are enough without it. You are divine, with or without a story. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It is saying, I will no longer allow what happened to define me. It is cutting the cord between your soul and the past, not because the past deserves it, but because your soul does. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. It is the decision to no longer let pain be your teacher, your companion, your shadow. Your new teacher is love. Your new companion is peace. Your new shadow is light. You are not here to prove your pain. You are here to express your freedom. You are not here to relive old wounds. You are here to awaken to your infinite self. And that self, it is waiting patiently beneath the rubble of your resistance. It has not been broken, only buried. Beneath every tear, every memory, every loss, it has remained untouched. Like a diamond beneath the soil, it is still there, radiant, whole, complete, waiting to be uncovered. This is the great return, not to a past self, but to the self that existed before you were taught to suffer, before you were taught to doubt, before you were taught to earn love. That self is your truth. And it is calling you now, not in words, but in knowing, in intuition, in the silence beneath your thoughts, in the stillness behind your eyes. Are you listening? Because if you are truly listening, then the addiction is already loosening. The identity is already dissolving, and in its place, something sacred is emerging. Freedom. Not the freedom the world gives you when things go your way, but the freedom that was never lost. The freedom that is your birthright. The freedom that is your nature. This is only the beginning. When you begin to awaken to the realization that your suffering is not required for your growth, you start to unhook yourself from the spiritual lie that pain equals progress. Yes, pain may come, but it is not the source of your power. Your awareness is. And once you stop identifying with the suffering, the pain loses its grip. The fire may still burn around you, but you will know you are not the flame. You are the one watching. This realization is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is not lightning and thunder. It is a quiet recognition, like the sun slowly rising behind a foggy mountain. The mountain does not move, but suddenly it is lit from within. That is what awakening feels like. It is not a forceful act. It is the gentle, divine invitation to remember that what you have been seeking has always lived inside you. You do not heal by fighting, you heal by allowing. You do not free yourself by resisting. You free yourself by accepting. Acceptance is not approval. Acceptance is clarity. It is seeing the present moment without adding the weight of the past to it. When you stop insisting that life be something other than it is, you unlock the door to the peace that was already in the room. Peace doesn't arrive when the world behaves. It arrives when you return to yourself, when you stop running from the now. You see, your suffering is often not about what's happening, but about what you're thinking about what's happening. The thought says, this shouldn't be. But what if it should? Not because you deserved it, but because it arrived as your curriculum. Your soul signed up for a classroom that the mind does not always understand, and in that misunderstanding, we reach for judgment. We reach for control. We reach for fear. And yet the soul only ever reaches for one thing: awakening. You are not here to control everything. You are here to respond to everything with love. Every experience you've had, the betrayals, the illnesses, the losses, the heartbreak, has been a sacred messenger, not a punishment. You are not cursed. You are being called inward, called home, called into the deeper layers of your being that only pain could expose. But once exposed, those layers must be healed, not by continuing to scratch at the wound, but by ceasing to identify with it. Healing begins when you stop telling the story from the voice of the victim and start remembering that you are always the observer, the awareness, the consciousness, the one who experienced the pain but was never the pain itself. You do not need to earn the right to feel whole. You already are. You do not need to prove your pain to receive love. You are already loved infinitely, eternally, unconditionally by the source that breathed you into being. That source does not see you as broken. It sees you as becoming. Not becoming someone else, but unbecoming everything you are not. And in that sacred stripping away, what remains is your essence. That essence cannot suffer. It is beyond form, beyond name, beyond history. You cannot touch it with your hands, but you can touch it with your stillness. You can meet it in the silence between breaths. You can feel it in the calm between your thoughts. You can hear it whispering in the spaces where the world goes quiet. That is who you are. Not the roles you played, not the failures you feared, not the identity the world has projected onto you. You are the one behind the roles, behind the masks, behind the defenses. You are divine awareness, choosing to have a human experience, and part of that experience includes pain, but not the addiction to it. That part is learned. And what has been learned can be unlearned. It begins with intention, with a willingness to release the familiar discomfort of suffering in exchange for the unfamiliar peace of your true self. It begins with asking, what if I no longer believed I had to suffer to be loved? It begins with challenging the beliefs that say, I am only worthy if I endure, or pain is the proof that I am growing. No, presence is the proof, awareness is the proof, joy is the proof. Joy does not mean you have forgotten the pain. It means the pain no longer defines your frequency. You are allowed to choose a new vibration. You are allowed to feel good. You are allowed to be at peace, even if the world around you is in chaos. Your serenity is not selfish, it is sacred. Your healing is not a betrayal of the past, it is a declaration of your power. You were not sent here to stay in the dark, you were sent here to become the light. And the light you are does not demand anything. It simply shines. Not because it wants recognition, not because it needs approval, but because shining is what it was made to do. So let yourself shine again. Even if your past tells you it's too late. Even if your ego says you're not ready. Even if the world says you should stay small. You were not born to stay small. You were born to expand. You were not born to stay wounded. You were born to evolve. And the addiction to suffering, that is the final illusion. The one that says, if I let go of this, I will have nothing. But in truth, if you let go of it, you will have everything. Because behind the suffering is your essence. Behind the story is your silence. Behind the identity is your truth. And your truth is not broken. It is not ashamed. It is not angry. It is not lost. Your truth is whole. Your truth is eternal. Your truth is divine. You are not here to convince anyone of your pain. You are here to demonstrate your freedom. And freedom is not loud. It does not scream. It does not argue. It simply is. So stop rehearsing the pain. Stop replaying the past. Stop feeding the addiction with the attention it no longer deserves. The pain has already been felt. The lesson has already been received. The wisdom is already within you. Now is the time to let go. Not because the past is forgiven, not because the pain was okay, but because you are no longer willing to suffer unnecessarily. This is spiritual maturity. To choose peace even when pain feels more familiar. To choose presence even when the mind demands more suffering. To choose now this moment as your liberation, because your soul has always known suffering was never the goal. Awakening was. And awakening is not found in the mind. It is found in the letting go. Let go. Let go of what hurt you. Let go of what betrayed you. Let go of what you could not change. Let go of the belief that your worth is measured by how long you've carried the pain. You do not need to carry it anymore. You are allowed to set it down. And in its place, you will find something sacred. Not something new, something ancient, something eternal. Something that has always been waiting patiently behind the veil of your struggle. You will find yourself not the self shaped by trauma, not the self shaped by society, but the self that was born before the pain ever began. You are that self. You are that light. You are that peace. Now return to it. Remember it. Reclaim it. This is your healing. This is your homecoming. This is your freedom. And it begins now. If the voice within you is whispering, but I don't know how to let go, let me tell you this. You don't need to know how. You only need to be willing. The path appears when the resistance disappears. Letting go is not a technique. It's a choice. A decision made moment by moment, breath by breath. A decision to stop feeding what no longer nourishes your soul. You let go not by force, but by allowing. You let go when you stop trying to control how healing looks. You let go when you stop trying to understand every detail of the past and simply say, it happened, and now I choose peace. This does not mean you don't care. It means you care enough to stop hurting yourself with what's already over. You've cried the tears, you've felt the weight, and now your soul says, there is more than this. And there is joy beyond your sadness. There is clarity beyond your confusion. There is light beyond your pain. There is freedom beyond your identity. But to reach it, you must unclench your hands. You must be willing to release what you have carried like a badge of honor. Yes, it protected you. Yes, it made sense. Yes, it once served a purpose. But no more. What once protected you may now be what is keeping you stuck. The old defense mechanisms have become prisons. The old beliefs have become walls, and now is the time to tear them down. But you do not need to tear them down with violence or anger. You simply stop feeding them. You withdraw your belief. You say, thank you for serving me, but I no longer need you. And in that moment of inner maturity, your freedom begins to return. It was never gone. It was simply waiting beyond the illusion, beyond the drama, beyond the voice of the ego, waiting for your willingness. You see, suffering survives on attention. It needs your mind to keep it alive. It needs your identity to give it shape. But When you become still, truly still, you can feel something deeper than suffering. You feel presence, not the kind that requires proof, not the kind that needs explanation, but the kind that simply is. That presence is who you are beyond thought. It is awareness untouched by pain, and it is always here. You may have forgotten it, but it never forgot you. It does not need you to be perfect. It does not ask you to fix yourself. It only invites you to come home, home to yourself, home to the divine essence that needs no justification, no resume of pain, no history of endurance to prove its worth. And once you return, once you begin living from the place of present, suffering becomes optional. Did you hear that? Suffering is not mandatory. It is optional. Pain may be part of the journey, but suffering is a choice. And when you finally accept that, you no longer argue for your limitations. You no longer defend your wounds. You no longer tell stories that reinforce your bondage. You begin to speak a new language, the language of liberation. And liberation sounds like this. I choose to no longer identify with my story. I choose to stop reliving the trauma. I choose peace not because the past changed, but because I did. And in those declarations, your entire vibration changes. The universe begins to respond differently. People treat you differently. Opportunities open where once there were walls, because your outer world is a mirror. It does not reflect what you want. It reflects who you are being. So be someone who is free. Not perfect, not invulnerable, not unfeeling, but free to feel without attachment, free to remember without reliving, free to stand in your worth without needing suffering as a crutch. The world does not need more people proving how much they've endured. The world needs more people who are willing to be free, even when it's easier to stay stuck. The world needs people like you, people who dare to heal not only for themselves, but for everyone they touch. Because when you heal, you break the chain. You stop the cycle. You become the permission slip for others to release their own pain. And that is the quiet revolution. Not one fought with noise, but with inner stillness. Not one declared with force, but with softness. Not one built on resistance, but on surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is giving over. Giving over the struggle to the presence that knows how to carry you when your legs are tired, when your heart is heavy, when your mind is loud. That presence is God. Source, Spirit, the Tao. Call it what you will. It lives within you. It breathes you. It animates your being. And it wants you free. It wants you joyful. It wants you unbound. It did not create you to suffer endlessly. It created you to awaken. So now you are at the sacred crossroads. The ego will offer you more pain, more identity, more drama. But the soul offers peace, spaciousness, love. One path you know well, the other asks for your trust. Which will you choose? Will you keep feeding the cycle or will you break it? Will you keep rehearsing the past or will you dissolve it in the fire of now? The choice is yours. Always has been. And the moment you decide, truly decide, the entire universe will shift to meet you there. Because the soul is not interested in delay. The soul does not procrastinate its own return. It longs not for more suffering, but for the sweetness of freedom. And once you taste it, you will wonder why you ever waited so long. Because freedom does not feel like escape. It feels like arrival, like exhale, like silence, like the moment you realize, I am okay. I am more than okay. I am free. Not because everything outside is perfect, but because everything inside is true. And truth is the end of suffering. You have walked through storms. You have wandered in deserts. You have stared at ceilings in the dark, begging the heavens for answers. You have known the weight of memories that refuse to fade, the ache of unanswered questions, the torment of what could have been. But through it all, you remained. You breathed through pain you thought would break you. You carried burdens no one saw. You sat in silence while the noise of your mind raged on. And now, at the edge of that long road, you stand face to face with a deeper truth. The pain was real, but it was never the truth of you. It was never your essence. It was never your name. You are not your trauma. You are not your heartbreak. You are not your scars. You are what remains when all of that is stripped away. You are the stillness behind the storm, the light behind the shadow, the peace behind the personality. And you are awakening not by trying harder, but by surrendering deeper. Surrender is the most courageous act the soul can make, not because it is weak, but because it is wise. It says, I no longer need to carry what life never asked me to carry. It says, I release my grip on the past so I may hold the present. It says, I trust in the unseen more than I trust in my fear. And in surrender, suffering begins to dissolve. The ego will tell you that surrender is dangerous, that if you let go, you'll be hurt again, that if you stop identifying with the pain, you'll become vulnerable. But listen closely, that voice is the voice of the very addiction you're here to release. It wants control. It feeds on fear. It survives by convincing you that healing is unsafe. But healing is your birthright. It is not the exception to life, it is the essence of life. Just as your body regenerates its cells, your soul regenerates its awareness. Every time you choose love over fear, stillness over noise, truth over identity, you heal. Not because of effort, but because of alignment. And in that alignment, there is no more need to suffer. You were not created to prove how much you can endure. You were created to reflect the presence of God through your being. God is not glorified by your misery. God is glorified by your awakening, by your peace, by your return to wholeness. And wholeness does not require you to fix what happened. It asks only that you stop identifying with it. You are not the events that shaped you. You are the awareness that watched them happen. You are the formless presence within the form. You are the timeless soul having a temporary experience. What does this mean? It means that every identity built from pain, I was abandoned, I was betrayed, I was broken, is just a story. And stories, while powerful, are not permanent. They are interpretations, not truth. They are the lens, not the light. You are the light, and when you awaken to this light, the story begins to soften. You begin to say things like, that happened, but it is no longer happening. That was real, but it is no longer who I am. I don't need to rebleed every time I remember. I can remember and still be free. This is healing. It is not forgetting, it is reframing. It is not denial, it is liberation. It is not spiritual bypass, it is spiritual maturity. You are no longer a child in the garden of pain. You are the gardener now. You are the one who decides what grows. You are the one who decides which seeds to water, fear or love, pain or peace, story or presence. Choose wisely. Your energy is your vote. And remember, the world may still try to remind you of who you were, but the world is slow to catch up to who you are becoming. You do not need anyone else's permission to be free. Freedom is not a consensus. It is a personal awakening. It is the soul's declaration. I no longer belong to the prison of my past. And when that declaration is made, your vibration shifts. People begin to say you feel different. They don't know what changed, but you do. What changed is that you stopped needing to suffer to feel real. What changed is that you stopped needing your wounds to feel worthy. What changed is that you returned to your natural state wholeness. And wholeness is not dramatic, It is not loud. It is not theatrical. Wholeness is gentle. It is steady. It is a quiet, sacred yes to this moment, exactly as it is. And in that yes, suffering melts. Addictions weaken. Stories fade. You return not to the version of you before the pain, but to the version of you untouched by it. The soul version, the divine blueprint, the you that existed before time had a name. That is your truth. And nothing the world can do will ever take it away. So take a breath now. A slow, conscious breath. Inhale not just air, inhale presence, inhale wholeness, inhale the remembrance of your divine nature, and exhale the story. Exhale the justification. Exhale the resistance. Let it go. Again, and again, and again, because freedom is not a one-time decision. It is a practice. It is a path. It is a way of living. And the more you choose it, the more natural it becomes. The addiction fades, not because you fight it, but because you stop feeding it. And one day, a day that is closer than you think, you will wake up and no longer recognize the person who once needed suffering to feel alive. You will see them with compassion, but no longer with attachment. You will bless their journey and thank their endurance, and then you will walk forward lighter than ever, finally home in yourself. And in that moment, you will smile. Not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer at war with it. You are free. Free not just from pain, but from the need to suffer. Free not just from memory, but from the identity built from it. Free not just from the world's expectations, but from your own inner prison. Free to love, free to breathe, free to be. This is your time. This is your return. This is your liberation. And no one can take it from you, because it was never outside of you to begin with. It was always here, waiting. And now that you've remembered it, is yours forever. You are free. You are whole. You are healed. You are home. There's a weight that no hand can measure and no scale can define. It does not rest on your shoulders, but you feel it pressing down. It does not bind your ankles, yet it keeps you from rising. And it is this weight, invisible, yet undeniable, that keeps so many of us from taking the flight into peace, into purpose, into freedom. It is the weight of what we refuse to release. The stories we rehearse, the wounds we keep fresh, the guilt we cradle like a memory we believe we must protect. And though we long to soar, we stay grounded because we've convinced ourselves that to let go is to forget. But forgetting is not the way forward. Releasing is. You cannot take flight while dragging yesterday behind you like a rusted anchor. You cannot rise into the light of your divine essence while gripping the shadows of resentment. The soul was not designed for heaviness. The soul was made to move like wind through skylight, spacious, free, but ego convinces us that our identity depends on the weight we carry, that our suffering is who we are, that our hurt makes us real. And so we hold on, we grip tightly to the pain, thinking it gives us meaning. But I ask you now, what has pain truly given you besides more of itself? You were not born into this world to suffer endlessly under the burden of your past. You were not sent here by source to collect wounds like medals and wear your trauma like a crown of proof. You were born to remember that you are already whole, already enough, already free. But you cannot awaken to that truth if your hands are full of what no longer serves you. Flight requires emptiness. Not emptiness in the sense of lack, but the kind of emptiness that is sacred, the emptiness of surrender, of openness, of trust. Birds do not rise by adding more weight to their wings. They rise because they were never meant to carry anything but the wind. And you, dear soul, were never meant to carry all that you're holding. Let go, not because it erases the past, but because the past was never meant to be your prison. Let go of who they said you were. Let go of what didn't happen the way you hoped. Let go of the apology that never came. Let go of the outcome you never received. Let go of the belief that you are broken. You are not broken. You are burdened, and there's a great difference. A bird with a stone in its beak is not incapable of flight. It simply needs to drop what it's holding. And the most powerful act you can perform in this lifetime is to unclench your spiritual fists and release what you've clung to for far too long. We live in a world that glorifies accumulation of things, of titles, of experiences, but also of wounds, of grievances, of stories. But your path to peace is subtraction, not addition. Every spiritual master, every awakened soul, every truly liberated being will tell you it's not what you gain that sets you free, it's what you release. The Buddha did not awaken by becoming more. He awakened by becoming less identified with form, with desire, with self. What are you willing to become less of so that you can become more of what you truly are? Are you willing to be less right so you can be more peaceful? Are you willing to be less certain so you can be more trusting? Are you willing to be less attached so you can be more free? Because to fly, you must let the heaviness fall away. And the heaviest thing you carry is the belief that you must carry it. There is a sacred law of the universe that is always at work. The more you resist letting go, the more you attract situations that force you to. Because your soul knows what your ego denies that your healing is in the release. That freedom is not granted by anything outside you. It is unveiled when you unbind yourself from within. So many people pray for peace but refuse to put down the sword. So many seek happiness while holding on to what hurts. But you cannot have both. You cannot live in the light and feed the shadows. You cannot ascend while gripping the ground, and you cannot evolve while protecting your pain. You have a choice. And this moment, this very breath, is the threshold. You can continue to identify with your wounds. You can keep rehearsing the stories of what they did, what you lost, what didn't go your way. Or you can stop. You can take a holy pause, and you can say to yourself, I've carried this long enough. I don't need this to be me anymore. This is not denial. This is liberation. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is wisdom. Releasing is not passive. It is powerful. It is not forgetting the past. It is understanding that your past does not have the authority to define your future unless you keep giving it the microphone. You came here to transcend, to transmute, to rise beyond, not to escape life, but to remember who you are within it. And you are not the hurt you experienced. You are the awareness that held it. You are not the betrayal. You are the witness. You are not the grief. You are the vast presence in which that grief arose and passed. You are not the weight. You are the sky. And nothing that happened in your story is heavy enough to keep you from remembering your true nature unless you decide it is. Take a moment now, not with your mind, but with your heart. Ask yourself quietly, what have I made heavier than it needs to be? What story are you still living inside of that no longer matches your vision of peace? What label, what memory, what name or identity have you fused with your sense of self, and does it still serve your highest path? If it doesn't, let it go. If it hurts, bless it and let it go. If it stirs up anger, acknowledge it and let it go. If it makes you feel like less than the infinite soul you are, breathe deeply and let it go. No one will do this for you. This is your sacred responsibility. No one else is inside your consciousness with a broom, sweeping out the resentment, the doubt, the guilt. Only you can do that. And you do it not because others deserve it, but because you do. You deserve peace. You deserve to wake up unburdened. You deserve to feel light. And flight, true spiritual flight, is what happens when the soul remembers that its natural state is freedom. You are not your wounds. You are not your fears. You are not the broken dreams or the roads that didn't lead where you hoped. You are the one who has survived it all and now stands at the edge of a new becoming. But you can't take off until you release what weighs you down. The caterpillar must surrender the ground before it becomes the butterfly. The leaf must release the tree to dance with the wind. And the soul must release the ego's grip to remember it was never confined to begin with. Release is the sacred act of trust. It is saying to the universe, I no longer choose to carry what you never asked me to hold. You don't heal by holding tighter. You heal by surrendering. And as you surrender, a miracle occurs. The heart begins to lighten, the breath deepens, the mind softens, the world looks less threatening, love finds you more easily, joy visits more often. And suddenly the life you were meant to live is no longer on hold because you stop carrying the delay disguised as pain. You are not behind, you are not late, you are exactly where you need to be to remember. The sky has always been waiting for you to rise. So often we say we want to be free, but what we really mean is we want to be free on our terms. We want to let go, but only if we know what will come next. We want to trust, but only if we can control the outcome. And this is where most souls stall. Not because life isn't offering us wings, but because we're still trying to fly while dragging the ground behind us. But let me ask you this. Has clinging ever brought you peace? Has gripping ever led to grace? Or have you noticed that every time you let go, really let go, the next step appeared more clearly, the burden grew lighter, and something inside you finally exhaled? The irony of the spiritual path is that we do not grow by adding more. We grow by shedding what was never us to begin with. Not one layer of pain was your true self. Not one scar defined you. Not one fearful thought ever spoke with the voice of your soul. And yet, we identify with them because we've forgotten the art of being rather than becoming. We think we must become something extraordinary. But the soul is already extraordinary. The only task is to remove what clouds that remembrance, like a sculptor chipping away at marble to reveal the figure within your journey. It's not about chasing something new. It's about uncovering what has always been there. Your divine essence, and this essence is weightless. You do not need to fix yourself. You only need to free yourself. You don't need to gather more knowledge. You need to unlearn the lies. You don't need to become powerful. You already are. You simply need to drop the thoughts, the judgments, the traumas, and the identities that told you otherwise. The ego says, you must be more. The soul whispers, you already are. And when you listen closely, you will hear that whisper underneath every heartbeat, every breath, every still moment where you're not trying to be anything, you are simply present. In that moment, you are flying. Because flight is not a destination, it is a state of being. It is alignment with who you truly are, beneath the noise. Now, you may ask, how do I begin to let go? You begin by notice when a thought carries heaviness. Notice when a memory returns not to heal you, but to punish you. Notice when a belief makes your chest tight or your energy dim. That is not truth. That is ego disguised as memory. And you have the power right here, right now, to witness it, thank it for its role, and release it like a bird from the cage of your mind. This is not a one-time act. It is a sacred practice. Every day, you must ask yourself, does this thought serve my flight? Does this feeling expand me or bind me? Is this belief lifting me or holding me down? If it is not helping you soar, it is not coming from your highest self. Release it. You don't need it. And in its place, choose a lighter thought, a loving thought, a truer thought. Choose gratitude over grievance. Choose faith over fear. Choose now over then. And choose to see every single moment of your life, even the painful ones, as teachers rather than burdens. Because when you shift your perception, what once weighed you down becomes the very force that lifts you. Do you see the paradox? What was once pain becomes purpose. What was once failure becomes foundation. What was once sorrow becomes spaciousness. But only when you stop resisting, only when you stop identifying with it as you. And in that sacred shift, the alchemy of awakening your soul begins to remember you were never the wound. You were always the healer. You were never the broken piece. You were always the whole. You were never the story. You were always the silent awareness in which the story unfolded. And you were never meant to carry it all. That was never your purpose. So ask yourself now, what is the weight I've been carrying that I no longer wish to bring into tomorrow? Perhaps it's the weight of comparison, the belief that you must measure your worth against others, that if someone else succeeds, you've somehow failed, that your path must look like theirs to be valid. But the truth is, no two souls have the same sky to fly in. You have your own direction, your own design, your own sacred winds. And when you stop comparing your flight to someone else's, you begin to soar in your own unique rhythm. Or perhaps it's the weight of shame, the echo of past choices you no longer align with. But hear this with all your heart. You are not your past. You are the awareness that learned from it. Guilt serves no one when it becomes a home. Let it be a guide, not a jail. Take the lesson, release the judgment, and free yourself. The soul does not evolve by condemning itself. It evolves by choosing love again and again. Maybe the weight you carry is anger that hot, consuming fire that promises strength but only burns the vessel that holds it. Anger often masks grief, and grief is love with nowhere to go. Let it go. Not for them, for you. Because you were not born to be consumed by flames. You were born to be illuminated by light. Or perhaps it's the weight of the unknown, the fear of what you can't control, can't see, can't predict. But my friend, life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be trusted. Faith is the wings, uncertainty is the sky, and trust is the wind beneath it all. When you stop needing to know where you're going, you finally arrive in the now, and the now is the only place you ever truly had to be. So much of what we carry isn't ours to hold. We carry expectations we never agreed to, roles we never wanted, pain passed down through generations. But just because it's been handed to you does not mean you have to carry it forward. The chain ends when you say it does. The pattern dissolves when you choose to wake up. And waking up isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's simply a moment of quiet clarity when you sit alone with your breath and realize, I'm done carrying what doesn't feel like love. That's the moment the flight begins. And once you taste it, even once, you will never forget what it feels like to be free. There is something miraculous that happens when you no longer resist the falling away, when you no longer mourn what is leaving, but bless it on its way. In that holy space, you are not losing, you are remembering. You are not being emptied, you are being refined. The acorn must crack for the oak to emerge. The shell must break for the light to pour in. And yes, it feels like loss, but in truth, it is birth. The death of who you are not is the beginning of who you've always been. Do not grieve what you release. It was never yours to keep. You are not here to hoard old identities. You are here to embody truth. And truth is light. Truth is weightless. Truth needs no defense, no protection, no mask. The most powerful thing you can do in a world obsessed with appearance is to become weightless, to become real, to say, I don't need to hold this story anymore. I don't need to defend this pain. I don't need to explain why I'm healing. I only need to return to peace. Because peace does not argue, peace does not beg, peace does not carry a ledger of wrongs, it does not keep score. Peace simply is. And when you stop trying to earn it, When you stop believing it must be deserved, you realize peace is your natural state. You were never without it. You were only distracted. The distractions came in many forms. The noise of comparison, the addiction to busyness, the need to be seen, the compulsion to be understood. But peace never left you. It was waiting quietly underneath the rubble of all that trying. Flight is not about rising above others. It is about rising above the noise, the inner dialogue that says, you're not enough, you haven't done enough, you don't deserve rest. That voice is not the voice of God. That is the voice of conditioning. And the moment you stop identifying with it, you begin to fly. Because flight isn't about escaping life, it's about engaging life from a higher vantage point. When a bird soars above the storm, it's not avoiding the sky, it's simply rising to where the storm no longer reaches. And so must you. There will always be chaos on the ground, always some drama, some fear, some grievance pulling at your feet. But you are not your feet, you are your wings. And your wings are made of faith, of surrender, of the deep knowing that you are carried by something greater than circumstance. What is this something greater? Call it what you will. God, Source, the Tao, divine intelligence. The name matters less than the experience of it. And the experience of it is this: peace without reason, joy without cause, love without condition. When you rest in that space, you will realize nothing was ever missing. You just couldn't feel it through the weight you were carrying. Release is the doorway to the divine. You do not need to beg the universe for peace. You need only make space for it. Peace does not need to be created. It only needs to be uncovered. Imagine your soul as a radiant sun always shining. The clouds of resentment, fear, guilt, and control only obscure it, never extinguish it. The work is not to chase light. The work is to dissolve clouds. And how do you dissolve a cloud? Not with force, not with war, with awareness. Awareness is the great dissolver. When you see clearly what you've been carrying without judgment, without shame, the weight begins to lift. So take a breath now and simply ask, what am I ready to see? What truth have I avoided? Because I feared what it would ask me to release. Perhaps it's the truth that your identity is not in your trauma. Perhaps it's the truth that your worth is not defined by your productivity. Perhaps it's the truth that your pain has been a teacher, not a punishment. Or perhaps it's the truth that you're allowed to let go, even if no one else says sorry. There are no prerequisites to freedom. There is only your decision, your inner yes. And the moment you say yes to release, the sky opens, the burdens loosen, and your wings begin to stretch again. But the ego will not go quietly. It will tell you, if you let go, you'll be exposed. If you release control, you'll fall. If you forgive, you'll be weak. None of that is true. It is the ego that fears the sky because it cannot survive in openness. The ego feeds on structure, on story, on certainty. But the soul is water. The soul is wind. The soul is light. It cannot be contained. And when you live from soul, you do not need to know. You only need to be. There is an ancient wisdom that lives inside you, a compass that doesn't use logic but resonance. You feel it when you are near truth. You feel it when you are near joy. You feel it when something heavy suddenly feels light, and you know this is the path. Follow that. That is your wings speaking, and they will never lead you astray. But you must be willing to silence the noise, to step away from the collective panic, the chronic comparison, the constant mental commentary. You must dare to pause, to breathe, to listen inwardly, because in that space, the divine speaks, not with thunder, but with stillness, not with answers, but with presence. And that presence is what lifts you. You are not waiting for the sky to open. You are remembering that you are already in it. The weight you've been carrying is not keeping you grounded. It's keeping you distracted from the fact that you are already soaring. You just haven't opened your eyes to it. The more you release, the clearer you see, the lighter you become, and the more you begin to trust not the future, not the outcome, but yourself, your soul, your center. This is the liberation the saints spoke of. The freedom the mystics danced in, the peace the sages pointed to when they said, "Be still and know." Know what? Know that you are already home. Know that the wings were never outside of you. Know that everything you've ever sought is not in the distance, it is within. But it cannot be felt while carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. So lay it down, beloved soul. Lay down the proving. Lay down the defending. Lay down the striving. Lay down the waiting for permission. You are allowed to be light. You are allowed to be free. You are allowed to fly, not someday, not when it all makes sense, not when they apologize, but now. Now is your moment. Now is your portal. Now is the beginning of the rest of your flight. When the soul begins to remember its weightlessness, a quiet revolution takes place. Not in the external world, but in the inner kingdom. This is the true uprising, not against others, not against life, but against the false self you've been conditioned to carry. This uprising is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It simply refuses to carry what is no longer aligned with light. And in this refusal, a powerful truth emerges. You are not here to hold on. You are here to flow through. You are not a container for pain. You are a vessel for presence. And presence is too sacred to be filled with what is no longer real. So if it no longer feels like love, it no longer belongs in your hands. If it no longer resonates with peace, it no longer belongs in your heart. And if it no longer brings you closer to truth, it no longer belongs in your mind. You came to this earth not to collect, but to remember. And memory, true memory, is not about the past. It is about your origin, the divine essence that preceded all experience, all trauma, all identity. The light you were before the name, before the wound, before the story. That light has never been dimmed, only buried. And every act of letting go is an excavation, a return, a resurrection. The ego will call it loss, but the soul knows better. The soul calls it rebirth. Yes, rebirth. You will be reborn many times in this life, not just once. And each rebirth will cost you the version of yourself you thought you had to be. Each flight will ask you to shed another layer, to drop another burden, to trust more deeply than before. This is not regression, this is expansion. Every shedding is sacred. You shed illusions, you shed attachments, you shed roles you never truly agreed to, and one by one you return to the center of who you are, vast, open, free. And when you return there, the world begins to look different. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer perform, you presence. You no longer grasp, you allow. You no longer ask, how do I control this? But instead, what is this here to teach me? This is what it means to live from soul. And soul does not carry the past like a wound. It carries only the present like a flame. In that flame, everything that is false will burn away, and that is the grace of it. You are not being punished, you are being purified. All that is being asked of you is this: stop carrying what you don't want to become. If you hold resentment, you become it. If you carry fear, it becomes your lens. If you grip the past, it becomes your prison. But if you hold truth, you become peace. If you carry stillness, you become presence. If you walk in surrender, you become weightless. And when you become weightless, you don't even have to try to fly. You simply rise, like a feather no longer pinned down by ego, like a breath finally released into the world, like a soul no longer apologizing for its light. This is your destiny not to strive, not to suffer, but to rise. And this rising cannot be done from effort alone. It must be done from trust. Trust that life is not working against you, it is working through you. That every detour was a redirection. That every heartbreak was a doorway. That every ending was a sacred invitation to begin again lighter this time. Have you noticed how nature never clings? The trees release their leaves without asking when the new ones will come. The river flows forward, never backward, never doubting its direction. The sun does not mourn the night, it simply returns again and again. And yet, we, the most conscious of creation, resist this natural rhythm. We hold on to last season's leaves. We grip the banks of the past. We beg the night not to fall. But healing is in the rhythm, and peace is in the release. So stop trying to force stillness through control. Allow it through surrender. Stop demanding that life obey your timeline. Let it unfold according to the greater wisdom that forms stars and births galaxies. That same wisdom is guiding your unfolding. You don't need to rush. You don't need to fight. You don't need to earn your flight. You only need to step out of the illusion that you were ever grounded to begin with. Your spirit was never bound. It was only your identification with the binding that made you feel stuck. It is not your job to carry every lesson forever. Some lessons are meant to be learned and then released. Some pains are meant to be felt and then transmuted. And some experiences are meant to pass through you, not stay inside you. Release is not rejection. It is integration. You take the wisdom. You leave the wound. You take the growth. You leave the guilt. You take the lesson. You leave the label. You are not who you were when the pain happened. You are who you became after it. And the more you release the story, the more you can honor the strength it gave you without needing to keep reliving the scene. You cannot write a new chapter while rereading the old one. And you cannot fly into your future while defending the architecture of your past. So breathe now. Breathe and ask your soul, what am I defending that I no longer even believe in? Because that is where the heaviest weights hide in old beliefs you don't even resonate with anymore. Beliefs like, I must be perfect. I'm not worthy unless I achieve. I'm only lovable if I'm needed. I can't rest until I've proven something. These beliefs are not you. They are inherited, adopted, programmed. And they are optional. Choose again. Choose freedom over form. Choose essence over expectation. Choose truth over tradition. You do not owe anyone the version of you that you've outgrown. Your only allegiance is to your becoming. And becoming requires lightness. Becoming requires courage. Becoming requires space. And above all, becoming requires letting go. There is nothing left to prove. No weight left worth carrying. You have already survived what was meant to break you. You are here, and you are free to choose peace, not someday, but now. So put it all down. The apology that never came, the identity that no longer fits, the guilt that was never yours, the grief you've already honored, the expectations that exhaust you, the fear that says you're not ready. Let it all fall. Because the moment you stop gripping the past, the future no longer frightens you. And the moment you stop defending the pain, healing finds you without effort. You don't need to chase purpose. You are purpose. Once you stop covering it up with everything you think you must be, the sky does not explain itself to the ground. It just opens wide, blue, boundless. So must you. Your lightness is your truth. Your peace is your power. And your freedom is already here beneath the weight you are finally willing to release. So rise. You're ready. Let go and fly.